In the stillness of an early December morning in 1997, the town of Elkhart, Indiana, was just beginning to stir. A thin sheet of frost covered every rooftop, and the streets were quiet, save for the low hum of engines and the distant barking of a neighborhood dog. For most, it was just another routine day. But for mailman Doug Patterson, what was inside one particular mailbox on 3rd Street would become the defining moment of his life, and one of the most disturbing mysteries the Midwest has ever seen. At 7:42 a.m., Doug approached a large rusted mailbox that stood alone at the edge of a quiet lot. He'd delivered letters there dozens of times before, but as he opened the lid, he heard something that stopped him cold, a soft whimpering, barely audible beneath the shuffle of paper and metal. He peered inside and froze. Inside the mailbox was a young girl, wrapped tightly in a stained gray blanket, eyes wide with fear and cheeks flushed from the cold. Her lips trembled. She was shivering, but alive. Her name was Kayla Moore, 6 years old. Just 2 days earlier, she had been reported missing after her mother left her unattended in a car while she ran inside a gas station off Route 20. In that brief moment, Kayla vanished. No one saw a struggle. No one saw her leave. There were no signs of forced entry in the vehicle. It was as if she had simply disappeared. The community had mobilized instantly. Flyers were posted. Search parties combed through woods and alleys. Police set up roadblocks and checkpoints. But for 2 days, not a single trace of Kayla turned up until she was found in that mailbox. Paramedics arrived within minutes. Kayla was malnourished, disoriented, and barely able to speak. She had scratches along her arms and legs, and old bruises that suggested more than a simple fall. Her clothes were not the ones she'd last been seen wearing. They were too big, torn, and smelled strongly of motor oil and mildew. Her fingernails were dirty, and embedded beneath them were small traces of something that would later be identified as red clay, a type not found anywhere in Elkhart. When detectives tried to speak with her, Kayla couldn't form a complete sentence. She clung to her blanket and stared ahead, eyes unblinking. It was as if her mind had retreated into a place too dark for words. The mailbox itself held few clues. No fingerprints. No footprints in the surrounding snow. The latch had been carefully closed. It appeared that whoever left her there wanted her to be found, but not easily. The following day, forensic teams analyzed Kayla's clothing and blanket. They found trace amount of pine resin and a type of insulation foam commonly used in abandoned industrial buildings. The key breakthrough came when red clay found on her skin was traced to a remote farmhouse 18 miles away, deep in the outskirts of Kosciuszko County. The property had once belonged to a man named Harold Lines, a former welder and war veteran who had passed away 2 years earlier. The farmhouse had sat empty ever since. Police secured a warrant and arrived at the property with a forensics team and K-9 units. What they found inside confirmed their worst fears. The interior of the farmhouse was in disrepair. Boards creaked underfoot, wallpaper peeled from the walls, and a damp, metallic smell filled the air. In the basement, they found a small room with a metal door that had been recently reinforced from the inside. There was a child's mattress on the floor, a buck in the corner, and a small table covered in old toys and expired food cans. On the walls were dozens of drawings, crude sketches likely made by a child, showing dark shapes, a black van and a woman with hollow eyes. Hair samples were collected from the mattress. Most were Kayla's, but 4 strands were not. DNA analysis later revealed that the other hairs belonged to different individuals, none of whom matched anyone in Kayla's family or any known missing persons cases in the national database. But that was not all. In a hidden compartment beneath a loose floorboard, detectives found a box containing several notebooks. Inside were handwritten surveillance logs, names, dates, addresses, and notes detailing the routines of various children in nearby towns. Most chilling of all was the final page of the last notebook. It read, "Kayla, December 3rd, returned." The police believed someone had been using the abandoned farmhouse as a holding site, carefully monitoring children before selecting a target. Kayla had been the most recent, but what had changed? Why was she returned? Footage from a nearby gas station captured blurry security footage of a figure walking along Route 13 around 4 a.m. the same morning Kayla was found. The person was wearing a long coat and carrying a bundle in their arms. Though the image was grainy, police believed it to be a woman, slender, medium height, with what appeared to be a scarf covering her head. The same figure was captured again by a traffic camera 2 blocks from where the mailbox was located, just 40 minutes before Kayla was discovered. Despite intense efforts, the woman was never identified. When Kayla was finally able to speak weeks later, she recalled only fragments. She mentioned a lady who hummed, a room with no windows, and a game where she had to stay quiet or the lights would go off. She remembered being given chocolate bars and told bedtime stories about crows and tunnels. But whenever asked about the farmhouse or how she got into the mailbox, she would fall silent and stare at the floor. Her drawings, however, told more. In therapy sessions, Kayla drew pictures of a large, dark room filled with boxes. She drew a face with no eyes and no mouth, and she always drew a black van with red curtains in the windows. In the years that followed, the case remained open, though leads went cold. Then, in 2002, 5 years after Kayla was found, another child went missing under eerily similar circumstances. 10-year-old Mason Whitaker vanished from a strip mall parking lot while waiting for his father outside a music store. 3 days later, his jacket was found near a mailbox in South Bend, 25 miles from Elkhart. Mason was never found. Police revisited the Kayla Moore case with renewed urgency. When shown pictures of Mason, Kayla reportedly whispered he was there, but she never elaborated. Public speculation grew. Some believe a cult was operating in rural Indiana. Others suggested human trafficking. A few insisted it was the work of a woman who believed she was rescuing children from broken homes. But no theory was ever confirmed. The woman in the footage remained unidentified, and no fingerprints or DNA were ever matched to a suspect. Kayla eventually moved away with her family. She changed her name and now lives in a small town under state protection. She's never spoken publicly about her experience. Her mother, who faced backlash for leaving her child alone that day in 1997, eventually moved out of Indiana entirely. Today, more than 25 years later, the mailbox on 3rd Street is gone. The farmhouse was demolished in 2004 after a fire destroyed most of the remaining structure. But the questions remain. Who took Kayla Moore? Why was she returned when others were not? Who was a woman who appeared only in shadows and grainy footage? And what was the purpose behind the chilling notes found beneath the floorboards? Authorities still receive tips. Some credible, most not. Every year on December 5th, a single envelope arrives at the Elkhart Police Department. No return address, no message inside, only a drawing, a black van, red curtains, and a mailbox. What happened to Kayla Moore may never be fully understood, but her story of survival, silence, and unanswered questions remains a haunting reminder that sometimes the darkest crimes hide in plain sight, and in places we least expect, like a mailbox on a quiet winter morning. Subscribe and like if this gave you chills.